It's time for this week's Economy Matters with Christoph Schumacher. And this week you're suggesting the RBNZ was too late to hike rates last year.
Absolutely. If you check actually what inflation has been doing and the way it has been increasing and at what pace, the Reserve Bank has been quite slow in raising the OCR and trying to keep a lid on inflation actually.
So you've got your free market hat on?
Absolutely, and I usually do. And with that in mind, I would suggest the OCR needs to go up even further.
And why is that?
Because if we check the inflation speed, we need some way to control the rise, and that can only be done by the OCR. It is in fact the only tool the Reserve Bank has.
Yes, only tool. So are they limited with what they can do and the effect it will have?
Yes, they are. A rise in the OCR, of course, will have a very direct impact on New Zealanders because it will mean mortgage rates will go up. And New Zealand has unusually short fixed interest rates on mortgages, far shorter than many of the other countries. So the impact will be quite direct and immediate for many New Zealanders.
We've been here before, though. In your column, you talk about the early 90s.
Yes, and what happened then was that the OCR went up quite dramatically and stronger than in many other countries, and we received a lot of praise for that in New Zealand because New Zealand controlled inflation a lot better than, for example, the US, who even referred to New Zealand at some stage saying we weren't fast enough, but New Zealand was.
Well, have we learnt lessons from 1990?
Maybe not strong enough, but we are facing a different scenario now. Household debt is a lot higher than it was in 1990, so any rise in the OCR will hit Kiwis a lot stronger and heavier, creating possibly social problems rather than in 1990 where household debt was much lower.
It's now likely that New Zealand will have a recession next year. What do you think about that and the flow-on effect for households?
Yes, it's likely that a recession will hit us, and it's likely that inflation is still there to rise, and that the OCR will go up even higher. The Reserve Bank governor made such comments, so that will hurt households even more, and next year might be actually quite a tough time for many New Zealanders.
Is the RBNZ overshooting it? Are we going to have a hard landing?
I don't think they will be overshooting it because we are quite far away from where really a optimal, from an economic perspective, optimal OCR would sit. So I doubt that they will overshoot. They will have to go up probably a bit higher to contain inflation. But that also has good effects for Kiwis because inflation is nothing else but a tax on everything else you pay. Because every time you buy something, it has become more expensive. That's no different to the government raising the GST, for example. So by containing inflation, there will be immediate positive effect for Kiwis as well.
And inflation will stay out of the target band for an extended period.
It very much looks like it. I mean, the target band is 1 to 3%. We are now sitting at 7.5%. Inflation won't come down that quickly, so it will take quite a while until we are back in the prescribed band. Yes, that's correct.
And it's a slow burn downwards, isn't it? What's going to really push it down?
It normally is. It will start with higher OCR. Making money more expensive will force people to spend less and save a bit more. And if there's less demand, prices will start to readjust and go down. But that's why it takes such a long time, because it's quite a slow trickle-down effect.
How does New Zealand compare with the rest of the world in terms of interest rates?
We are sort of in par now with several of the other big economies, looking like at the US and at Europe. So we are sort of following the trend, and the US has announced that they are probably increase their rates as well. And normally New Zealand follows suit. We closely mirror what is happening in the US.
So it's a lot of pain around the world and a lot of domestic inflation pressures as well.
Absolutely. This is now a global phenomenon, not just in New Zealand. Every other country is hit just as much. I mean, look at powerhouses like Germany or the UK or the US. They are struggling with even higher inflation rates than we currently see. Some of these massive big countries are going up for two-digit inflation rates, which hasn't been around for many years. So it's a global phenomenon at the moment.
How are you entering 2023? Are you cautious, optimistic that it won't be so bad?
I think cautious is probably the right word. It will hit New Zealand hard. It will hit every other country in the world hard. But overall, New Zealand is still doing okay. It's a wonderful country, so it's maybe just time to be a bit cautious and ride out sort of this bad wave and looking ahead for better things to come. And economies move in cycles. We had many, many years of unbelievably low inflation, so it was more or less just a matter of time for this to pick up, as it seems to happen in sort of 10 years intervals anyway.
And your article points to this, but is it a matter of fact that the Reserve Bank was too late and here we are now?
Yes, my head of a free market economist would say yes, absolutely. They were too late. However, they constrained themselves in a way through pumping money into the economy, through the program of quantitative easing they had committed to, and with that came also a commitment not to raise the OCR. So when inflation really started going, because there was more money circulating in the economy, their hands were tied. They couldn't respond as quickly as they might have liked to, simply because they had made this assurance of keeping the OCR very low for a certain fixed period of time.
So if we push ourselves out 12 months' time and we reflect on the OCR decision made this month, 75 basis points, what will we be saying?
Again, I think it could have been even higher, but at the same time, if you're a Reserve Bank governor, you're in an unbelievably difficult situation because, if he had pushed it up to 1%, it would have caused even stronger social harm or hardship. So I think it was probably the right decision, somewhere in between doing what's socially good, but at the same time not ignoring economic advice.
Do you think the criticism of the Reserve Bank governor is fair?
Of course, I believe there needs to be constructive criticism. We should be in a free market democracy, as we are, be able to voice our opinions. Most economists, especially free market economists, will point out that it has been too little too late. The OCR should be higher. So there is no problem, in my view, to voice those concerns because it starts an interesting dialogue. It increases accountability and it will help us to understand why the Reserve Bank is doing what it is doing. And I think that is an unbelievably important issue at this point in time, so that there is transparency, clarity, and people can follow and understand why these things are happening.
Christoph Schumacher, thanks for your time.
You're most welcome.